Hey, welcome to LAC Prepared. The content in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not paid by nor am I sponsored by any company that manufactures or sells any products that I might mention or discuss in this video. I hope everyone is doing great. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Ryan, and let's get into it. This is video number 4 in the Unconventional Mindset series. This video is going to cover section 2 of the Tribe Training Manual, and that section is called Accuracy versus Combat Effectiveness. Before I get into it, just wanted to kind of talk about how I was when I first started out shooting 20 plus something years ago. I was so focused on getting rounds through like a quarter size hole. Okay. And I'd be so pissed off. I had gone to the range. I had driven there. I had waited an hour in the lobby waiting for a lane. I had bought my overpriced ammo, and I get out there and I'm shooting, and my rounds are in a good place, but they're just not what I would consider to be accurate. Okay, so as time went on, different experiences in my life, being in the military, working in security. I started focusing on something else. I started focusing on being combat effective. So of course, being accurate is important, right? I mean, nobody's gonna debate that. Being accurate is extremely important, especially in today's world where you have active shooters, all kinds of crazy shit like that. I mean, you want to make sure that your rounds go where you want them to go, because as soon as that bullet leaves that barrel, you are responsible for it. If it hits a bystander, if it hits property, it blows out someone's windshield, you're responsible for it. So you want to get those rounds into your target, okay, into the intended person. But does it have to be in a small little quarter size hole? Okay, I don't think that it does. I mean, but that's just me. Um, would that be nice? Well, yeah, absolutely. But we're gonna talk about why that's, in my opinion, it's kind of an unrealistic expectation when it comes to using a gun for self defense, and in a self defense situation where life or death is on the line. Okay, but you always want to strive to be accurate. But I just want to talk about why I feel being combat effective is more important. So let's talk about the accuracy for a moment. Okay, let's talk about being focused on wanting to put your rounds in that quarter size, that silver dollar size hole. Putting rounds on top of each other, whatever you want to, however you want to describe it. Okay, if you're out there and you're shooting at paper or steel or cardboard, what's the common denominator in those targets? They're inanimate. They're not alive. They're not attacking you. They're not, drug fueled criminals hell bent on hurting you or your family. They're static. They are static objects. So when you're out there and you're shooting these targets, you don't really have that stress. Okay, you don't have that body alarm response. You don't have that oh shit factor. You don't have that dump of adrenaline and that heart rate that starts racing. And we're going to go over all that stuff in the section about body alarm response. But people for years have always tried to introduce some kind of stress. They'll have you, do some 50-yard sprints. Maybe after you do a couple 50-yard sprints, you drop down and do 30 push-ups, and then you run over, and then you pick up your gun, and then you start shooting. Well, that's going to jack up your heart rate. Maybe get a little bit of that muscle tremor going on, but it's not going to be like the real situation, and I can guarantee that it's nothing will simulate the actual situation, because it's going to be abrupt, it's going to be quick, it's going to come out of the blue. Like I've said in I think it was maybe a short that I did, but criminals pick the time and the place. Okay, they pick the method. You're out there living your life. This person has possibly already targeted you, or targeted a location or a group of people, or an item that they want to take from somebody. They've already maybe pre-planned that, or they're planning it as they go. Regardless, you are behind the curve. You are not a mind reader. Okay, you're not gonna. You can look at somebody and they can throw up red flags. We're gonna We're going to talk about that too. We're going to talk about pre-attack indicators. Okay. Um, but they've already decided. So they decide on the time and the place and the method. Are they using a screwdriver or a dull kitchen knife, or are they using a stolen Glock that they took out of somebody's pickup truck? You don't know, and you won't know until that situation just boom just happens upon you, and then in that moment, you're going to hit that body alarm response, that fight or flight response. And like I said, we're going to talk about that because there's also another level to that. There's fight, flight, and posturing. Okay, but in these situations, there is no posturing. Somebody's not going to pull a gun on you in a grocery store, and you're just going to be like, "Hey, bro, no." You're not going to posture up. I mean, you're immediately, your mind's going to go in one of two directions. You're going to fight or you're going to flight. You're going to fight or you're taking off. Okay. No matter how much you try to induce that, whether you do some crazy exercises before you shoot, and I think that's great. I absolutely think that's great. Anything that you can do to kind of mimic that body alarm response in your training and in your shooting is going to be nothing but beneficial, right? But in a real life situation, it's going to be crazy. Okay. Um, so accuracy versus combat effectiveness, and I can tell you there's not going to be a gold medal. You're not going to get a first place ribbon for making bullseye hits on a criminal that's trying to kill you. Okay. What you want in that moment is combat effectiveness. So being combat effective just means that the rounds that you put on target are effective at stopping that threat, right? Versus being accurate. You want to be combat effective. If you're accurate and stop that threat, then you're already there. But you want to be combat effective. You want to stop that threat because that's our end goal, right? I mean, we want to stop that threat. Criminals want an easy target. They wanted your wallet or maybe your shoes or your cell phone. They didn't want a trip to the ER or a trip to the morgue. So, in regards to some of the stuff that I'm talking about, in regards to being combat effective, there's a man named John Correa. He owns and operates Active Self Protection. He's got a fantastic YouTube channel. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put a link to it down in the description. Go over there and check out his channel. And I don't know if he came up with this term, but I'm going to give him credit because that was the first place that I've heard it, and I really haven't heard it anywhere else. But that's the FIBS factor, okay, the FIBS factor, the I've been shot. And that's the initial reaction that's going to happen, and it's going to happen to anybody. It's not just going to be the criminal. It could be you. It could be, it happens to police officers, the soldiers, whatever. That when you first realize that, holy shit, I've been shot. It's going to give you pause. So absolutely click the link in the description. Go check out his channel. He's got tons of great stuff over there. Tons of great info. Have much respect for John Correa over there. Anyways, being combat effective is going to give that FIBS factor to that criminal. Okay. As a matter of fact, go watch some of his videos. As a matter of fact, sometimes just the presence of a gun can make that criminal turn tail and take off. They didn't want to fight. They wanted the easy come up. They wanted something easy and smooth. They wanted fear. They wanted control. They wanted dominance. And now you wanting that or them wanting that, all of a sudden, they see a pistol come up out from under your shirt. I mean, you have absolutely blown away their entire plan. So, like I said previously, criminals pick the time and the place. Okay. You're always going to be playing some sort of catch up. Okay. It's going to catch you off guard. You don't really want to be, you want to be in a state of awareness. You want to have situational awareness. Absolutely. That's probably going to be the biggest section of the Unconventional Mindset series is talking about body alarm response and situational awareness. But situational awareness, like I've said in previous videos, that is the cornerstone to pretty much everything that I'm talking about here. No matter how much situational awareness you have, something can happen in the blink of an eye and you're going to be caught off guard. You're going to be playing catch up. So getting those combat effective hits on target as fast as possible is what's going to put you on top, is what's going to bring you out of that loop that he's got you caught in since he picked the time and the place. Well, now, he's going through that FIBS factor because you're getting those combat effective hits. Now you're in charge. You're in control. Okay, you've taken that control from them, so you've already won on multiple levels. He wanted an easy target. You're not an easy target. He didn't want to fight. And usually the person that wins that battle, that wins that fight, is the first person to put rounds on target. Okay, and you want that person obviously to be you. You don't want to be the one with that fibs factor. Okay, you want to give that to them. They've already caught you off guard. So now turn it around on them. Flip that script on them, and now you control that situation, at least to some degree. You're no longer playing catch up. Now they're playing catch up to you, and that goes into OODA loop and all that. And I knew OODA loop has been talked about, ad nauseum. Okay, but it's important to know, and that's part of the situational awareness. But the OODA loop, you've gotten inside his OODA loop, and now you're running that. So now he's having to observe, he's having to orient, he's having to make a decision, he's having to act on that. And the whole time you're already on top, you've got the high ground. You're setting the pace. But in that situation, get those combat effective hits, and you will live to fight another day. And again, I just wanted to reiterate that we never aim to eliminate somebody. Okay, our goal is to stop that threat. We want to stop it. We want to stop it as fast as possible. We want it stopped now. So that is my spiel on accuracy versus combat effectiveness. You always want to shoot and strive to be accurate. Okay, but especially for new shooters that are just now, there's all this crazy shit going on in the world, and they have finally decided maybe to even go get their first gun to protect themselves and their family, or maybe they've always had a gun, they've just never carried it. Okay, you always focus on being accurate, but don't get discouraged because you want to be combat effective. You don't have to put circle size holes in somebody to go home alive. You want to get combat effective hits. Now, here in a second, I'm going to talk about the target. I'm going to show you guys the target that I use with my kids, and yeah, we'll cover that. But just real quick, I want to go over some stats, okay? Because these stats are important and they kind of drive home the point that I'm trying to make. So data suggests that most self-defense shootings occur within 10 yards. And the majority of those shootings that occur within 10 yards happen from like 3 to 7 yards. Okay, think about that. 7 yards, that's 21 feet. That's close. Being that most self-defense shootings occur within that 10 yards, all the way down to arm's length, ask yourself, how important is it to be accurate, to get your rounds in that silver dollar sized hole at those distances? Okay, think of arm's length. I mean, now you're talking, what, a yard max? How accurate am I going to be, or how accurate do I need to be at that distance? And that gets into point shooting and all that stuff. But for example, there's a lot of videos that I've seen, a lot of interviews with police officers that were involved in shootings and officer involved shootings, and they report never even seeing their front sights or never seeing their sights at all. I mean, it happens at that range. You're just it's go time. Okay, so always, yeah, you should try to be accurate, but you want to be combat effective, because at that range, I mean, hell, you're not even going to be able to go to full extension. I mean, you might be doing some thumb to pec. You might be doing from the hip. It depends on where you're carrying. I always carry appendix. I'm probably going to put out some shorts and stuff about why I carry appendix, and in my opinion, I think it's the best. But I train in that thumb to pec. Just bringing it up right there. I can't see my sights. It's all about muscle memory, and I'm trying to get rounds onto that person. They might be coming at my neck with a freaking knife or something. I mean, you just want to get on it. You want to get on it right now. You want to be combat effective. The FBI has, I believe it is called, don't quote me on this, but it's like the rule of threes: 3 yards, 3 seconds, 3 shots. That's your average gunfight. So yeah, you want to train at varying distances, okay? And then, I'll be honest, I have steel targets, so I don't necessarily even have to see the hit. I can hear it. I'll put it, 30, 40, 50 yards away, just to send rounds at it, just to see, just if anything, just for fun, just to work on my technique. Maybe I'm working on my trigger pull, to make sure it's not deviating. Because with a pistol, um, once you get out to 50 yards, yeah, that round can start to wander, left or right or up or down. But you want to train at varying distances. But I implore everyone to focus mainly and predominantly on the 10 yards or less. Because chances are, if you're out on the street and you have to use your firearm for self defense, and mark my word, it's going to probably happen within that 10 yards. And in a way, I know this is going to sound kind of jacked up to say, but you better kind of hope that it does, right? Because it's going to be hard to explain to a jury why you shot some guy, from down the street, or even across the street. It's a lot easier to say, hey, this guy just walked right up to me on the street. He pulls this knife. He asks for my phone and my wallet. He starts making these, like he's going to stab me. Yeah. So yeah, I felt my life was in danger. I mean, I was seconds away from getting shanked to death in front of my kids. So yeah, I had to do what I had to do. I had to defend myself. A little bit different than saying, this guy was holding a knife and waving it at me and saying, "Hey, I want your phone and your wallet from, you know, 3 or 4 stores down." I mean, it's not feasible, I mean, at that point, take off. Don't ever let your ego get in the way and say, "Man, screw this guy. He's gonna talk shit to me." No, don't let your ego and your pride getting in the way of that, because there's gonna be that after effect. Whether you were in the right, I mean, 100% clear cut and dry self defense, it's still going to be an issue. It's still got to be explained away. You took someone's life, right? It's going to be, or you put them in critical condition, or you put them in a wheelchair for the rest of their life. I mean, any number of things. You're going to have to explain why you did that, and you better hope that you do that in the proper fashion, or you're going to prison. You did this to save yourself or to save your family. Well, what good are you now to yourself and your family when you're in an 8x8, concrete cell? You need to make sure that what you're doing is explainable. Okay, that's the best way to put it. It's defendable and explainable. What I recommend is, yeah, train at varying distances. Um, Focus on that combat effectiveness. Focus on getting those rounds into that target, okay, as fast as possible. And when I first started shooting, like drawing from my holster and shooting and trying to get my shots, I always kind of wanted to get, and I haven't timed myself in quite some time, but in all actuality, you probably want to do that within like a second and a half. I mean, that's about all the time you're going to have to clear your garment, get that pistol out, and start putting rounds on target. It's not going to be long at all. So I started working on that. Well, of course, and I'm doing this at like 7 yards. I mean, there's rounds I'm seeing the dirt getting blown up around the target. I'm hitting the target stand. I wasn't even not only not accurate, but I wasn't combat effective. Because I was too worried about speed, so I slowed it down. And this kind of gets back to my previous video about speeding up reaction time, motor time, response time. Okay, start slow. You don't want to start off fast. You start off fast, you're gonna screw up, and you're gonna get discouraged, or you're gonna introduce bad habits. And if you do those bad habits enough, you're gonna build, muscle memory on bad habits, and you definitely don't want that. So start off slow. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? So this is the target that I've made that we shoot. Cardboard. Okay, I cut it out and I draw this cool little shape on here, and this is what I use for my kids. Okay, this is how I explain combat effectiveness, accuracy, and this triangle here is the cardiovascular triangle. And one of my videos will cover the cardiovascular triangle, or you might already know what it is. But anyways, that's the cardiovascular triangle. Because if you notice, this target is 12 by 14 inches. 12 inches wide, 14 inches tall. And as you can see, there it is. Okay? About the size of an average male human chest. Okay? You got your cardiovascular triangle. But this whole target, okay, look at it again. Do you think I'm going to continue to come after your cell phone or your wallet if I take a round anywhere in this square, anywhere, I'm not, okay? I'm going to run through that John Korea's fibs factor, and I'm going to call it a day. Okay, I might be, if I'm the criminal, I might be calling it a day forever, right? But 12, 14, you got your cardiovascular triangle, and you've got this circle here. So this circle, obviously, is where you want to focus on your accuracy. Okay, because anything in that circle, I think that circle is maybe like 3.5 inches, is going to be accurate, in my opinion. So I want to be able to get rounds into this as fast as possible at ranges anywhere from arm's length out to, I'd say max, I'd probably do maybe 12 or 13 yards. Most of my shooting is done within 10 yards. You know, I'll back it up a little bit if I'm shooting steel, obviously, because I don't want to catch any splash. But most of the time, that's why it's cardboard. I mean, I can shoot this thing point blank. You know, I always pick the cardboard. I mean, you probably can't see that, but it's got good corrugation. I run yard stakes, stick it down in the ground. You can angle it, you know, if you're coming at it at different areas. And then sometimes, like I said, within arm's distance, arm's length, I mean, I can stick this in the ground and end up, you know, right over it. Okay. So that's the target that we use. Because again, like I said, this entire target, any round in this entire area, I would consider to be combat effective. Okay. They're probably going to stop what they're doing. Okay. They picked the time and the place. They wanted an easy target. They picked you as a victim. Now you've turned the tables on them, and now they've taken a round in this area. Now, if it's up here in the cardiovascular triangle, I mean that's probably a wrap. Okay, if it's within the circle, which obviously lies within the cardiovascular circle or the cardiovascular triangle, then yeah, it's a wrap. Anywhere in this target, anywhere, I would consider to be combat effective. Can I get rounds into this square, into this whole 12 by 14 piece of cardboard fast? Yes. And that's what I strive for because I want to be combat effective. So again, you always want to focus on being accurate, but focus on being combat effective because that's really what's going to save the day. Like I said, there's no gold medal for bullseye hits. And plus, getting bullseye hits on a violent criminal that's moving and dodging and ducking, you know, or coming at you at an angle or, you know, coming up behind you, in my opinion, that's damn near impossible, right? To get accurate hits on something like that, or bullseye hits, rather. But focus on being combat effective, okay? But stay prepared, keep that unconventional mindset, take care of your tribe, and we'll see you next time.